please welcome one of your own, Bill Conti.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Graduates, parents, faculty, friends, special guests, I'm honored to be here with you. And at first, I'd like to thank Dean Captain, who's meant so much to LSU. He's been so inspiring to so many. He's married to such a wonderful woman, Dolores. He's the best thing that could ever happen. He has two wonderful children. Dean, I can't read what you've written for me. I don't know. I always wanted to do that, so I did it. I promised not to be dramatic, too. My goodness. I'm determined to get this microphone off. If he can walk around, I can walk around. All right, I won't walk around. So this is really the culmination, right, of something that began back in high school, someplace 4 or 5 years ago. You remember that fateful day, possibly one of your parents' worst days, when you said, Mom, Dad, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to go to university, I'm going to be a music major. It was that deer in the headlights moment. Mom said, oh my. Dad said, what did you say? Well, it happened in my family too, you know, because my father was a musician, my grandfather was a musician. I've gone through 2 bachelor's degrees. I have a master's degree. I have an honorary doctorate degree. But there were many that thought that I majored in hunger and poverty until I had a hit. So you do need a hit. It's very important. But it all began, now my grandfather, of course, came from Italy. My grandparents came from Italy. My father was born in Providence, Rhode Island, where I was, and that was in 1942. For the mathematically challenged, I am 70. Musicians, people always think that music and math are the same things, but only we, my brothers and sisters, know that that's not true at all. So my father went to the Rhode Island School of Design. He was a painter, a sculptor, and of course I did music all my life, and it was natural in our house. But in 1954, my father had a heart attack, a devastating heart attack, and was told, don't spend another winter in New England. Get out of here. So in 1954, we moved to Miami, Florida. And when I was 14, quite by accident, I began playing piano in a saloon, in a nightclub. It was a substitute for some guy. Now you got to know, at 14 years old, I looked 10. But it really worked out. It was this oddity. Here I was playing with this trio, this jazz trio on Miami Beach. I was 14 years old. I had a police ID that says I was 21. So it began really, it was as novel for me at 15 and 16, and in my junior year of high school, my father said, what are your intentions for your senior year and afterwards? And I says, well, you know, maybe a better job, better nightclub. He said, oh, really? He says, well, then at the end of your senior year, you move out and get on with your life. You've already reached where you want to go. Just move out. Now, I love this guy, and that was like a slap in the face. Just move out. He says, well, maybe don't you think at 17, 16, you could aim a little higher? So that was the truth, and it was a message, and I did. So the music teacher at my high school said, you know, you're a fine pianist, because I did both. I played at night, but I practiced during the day. He says, but if you played a double reed instrument, I could get you a scholarship anywhere. Really? So I rented a bassoon, and I rented a teacher. The teacher at the university, well, we do that, don't we? Come on, they're for hire. So I rented a bassoon and a teacher from the University of Miami, and studied my senior year as a madman. I studied day and night. So, this is 2 people trying to do this. Oh, look at him.
How many percussionists does it take to get a microphone off the stand?
Now, at this time, is it on? See, I was going to do my imitation of the dean. I was going to introduce everyone on this side. Do I have to now introduce everybody? So, senior year ends and I auditioned with my little bassoon, right? And I get offers from the University of Miami, Indiana State, and Louisiana State University. So, staying in Miami meant, oh, staying at home. Won't do. People told me that it snowed in Indiana. I said, well, I've seen snow. I don't know. So, I came to Louisiana University for 4 years on a bassoon scholarship. And it's here that I met my first wife. She's from Baton Rouge, and she's a Southern woman, and that means there's two things you know about her for sure. Number one, she can shoot a gun. And number two, no matter where she is, she has to have a guard. So, I live in Los Angeles, and because I live in Los Angeles, where we number our wives, I refer to her as my first wife. We've been married 47 years, and please meet Shelby. Away from what's called the ballet corps, not the Golden Girls, right? Anyway, I got hooked on music in this other way. Now, I was always playing music 7 nights a week in the saloon. There was a place called the Stardust, Star Mist, Star something, the Candlelight Inn, of course, remember the strip place? 7 nights a week, all through college, all through high school. Then I went to Juilliard in New York, because the bassoon put me in the middle of the orchestra. And you could hear everything. Unfortunately, you could hear me too. I wasn't very good, but sitting music, I got hold of music. I said, I got to know more. I got to do more. I was aiming a little higher, possibly. And then at Juilliard, I went on to get other degrees. I got another bachelor's. We got married. 2 years on a master's after that, so we're 4 years in New York. And my primary instructor, the composer, Hugo Weisgall, there was Vincent Persichetti, Elliott Carter, people like that at the school at the time. Hugo Weisgall was to become composer in residence at the American Academy in Rome. And he was chairman of the board of the Prix de Rome committee. He says, why don't you come to visit your roots in Italy while I'm there, and I'll give you the Prix de Rome, which was an honor. And so you know that the chairman gets to pick whoever he wants. So I said, I don't need the Prix de Rome, give it to Bruce, friend of mine. I will never be in academia. I will always try to be a working film music composer. I want to do that for a living. We grew up in a house where my grandfather and my father, after dinner, would sing an opera. One guy would take the vocal parts, the female parts. The other guy would take all the male parts. Then he switched. They do another opera. Who take the female? So opera was a part of what I wanted to do all this time. So the hook to go to Rome was like a big deal. I said, okay, I think we're going to do that. In the meantime, my father dies. Terrible. My mother says, go. Go. You have to go. So when you live in New York and you park your car on the street, and your wife says, where'd you park the car? You know, you say between Broadway and 6th, because you have to tell where it is. I said to her, when she asked me where the car was, I said, I sold the car. I bought 2 one-way tickets to Rome. We're going to go live in Rome. She didn't start crying then. So, 14 hand-carrying suitcases and a little poodle that I hated, that was her dog. We bought the Cristoforo Colombo and we began our adventure in Rome. Now, when we arrived in Rome, I had $200, which was, I thought, sufficient. Because if we get married at 23, we can't be more than 24, 25 years old with this trip to Rome. So the very second night of being in Rome, I'm walking down the Via Veneto, which is their big street, and a man who sees the way your hair is combed, your shoes are, your pants, he knows in what language to address you in. By the way you look, this is the 60s. And the man says to me, would you like to meet a woman? In English. I says, well, no, not really. I mean, I need a job. I have a wife. And he says, job? What do you do? I says, I play piano. So I go into a saloon and I do a set, a play, and the owner says, 3,000 lira. I look it up in my little book and I go, oh my God, that's $5. Now I'm working in Midtown Manhattan for 4 years. I'm making $50 a night. This guy says, $5. So I tell my little friend, my new friend, right, let's go someplace else. So I do another set in another place. The guy says, I'll give you $2,000 a night. So for the next 2 years, I worked in that place for the $5 a night. I was supposed to only go there for the summer to visit the teacher, but my 2 daughters were born there. We stayed over 8 years, all in all. Anyway, the next big moment in my life, I'm playing piano in the saloon, and I'm calling myself a composer. I have 2 bachelor's degrees, I have a master's degree. So when someone says, what do you do? I said, I'm a composer. So this guy, his name is Morris West. He was a novelist, a writer, a guy of some prominence if you read. So I didn't mean to say that. Listen. So he says, you're living a lie. You're a saloon piano player. That's what you do. Hey, very good. But don't call yourself a composer. He says, I am a writer. I write every day. Do you write every day? I go, well, no, I'm tired. I work until 4 or 5 in the morning. That's okay. You're living a lie. You could prove that you're a composer by quitting. Now, I'm 28 years old. I have a family of 4, and I quit. I can't go into the details of it, but it's too painful. I quit. I musical direct hair in Italian for a year. I go to Milan, which was fun. Really fun. You would have thought that when people take their clothes off in Milan, people would go, hey, cool. And in Naples, they would put you in jail. But in Milan, they sent the police, and in Naples, they loved it. I did albums in Milan, Italy for years. So in other words, I was writing. I wasn't making as much as playing piano in a saloon, but I had vowed never to do that again. So now I'm asked to be musical director, musical supervisor for the Italian co-production of a film called Bloom in Love. Susan Ansbach, George Siegel, Paul Mazursky was the director, and it's going to film in Venice, Italy, and I'm a part of the Italian crew. It's going to be there for a month. So, this is how I meet Paul Mazursky, who is the director. He would come over with the translator to the Italian table where we were sitting, and through his translator say, we're going to shoot this scene. And I had the municipal band of Venice, and you know those little street players that are annoying when you're drinking a cappuccino? All those guys. And then in the afternoon, after lunch, he'd come over with the translator and say, what are we going to do in the afternoon? So this one afternoon, Paul can't find his translator, and he comes up to me, and he says, B. Now he said B, because when I was introduced to him, the Italian said, this is Bill Conti. So Paul says to me, B, 2:00. I need the musician. He says, do you understand? Now I shook my head. It's perfectly clear to me. B, at 2:00, the musicians have to do scene 142. He says, do you understand? I says, yes. He says, do you speak English? He says, well, yes. He says, where did you learn how to speak English? I said, Providence, Rhode Island. I'm in California. Couldn't believe he's been talking to me through a translator for 3 weeks. So the grandparents haven't seen the children that were born there, right? So we come back to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to show the grandparents. And my wife says, why don't you go to Los Angeles to see those people you did the movie with? Mazursky, blah, blah, blah. 73, we come back here. Paul Mazursky asked me to do the movie Harry and Tonto in 1974. I vowed never to do anything but write again, shall we, and the children come to Los Angeles. She gets a job as his secretary. And then the film editor on Harry and Tonto goes to do a little bitty movie with the director, and he remembers me. The little movie in 1976 was Rocky. And 2 composers before me turned it down because there was not enough money. The story is it's a $25,000 package deal. That means you pay for everything, pay the musician, the tape, the studio, and then you get what's left. So if you're a really working guy, you don't make any money. But I had learned that it's not about the money. I'd been poor, and it wasn't ever about the money. So I said yes. Then after that, it doesn't count. There's no story after that. The point was that when people say, well, are you going to be successful? You're going to be going into music. You go, music. Well, you know, some will, some won't. You know, some will be lucky, some will be unlucky. But, you know, we don't pick this. We don't come to this like engineering department. This is a calling. We heard the call. We answered the call. We're not musicians. Oh, let me see. Dentistry or music? Engine? No, we don't. We love it. This is what we do. We can't help it being in music. I don't want to hear about these other disciplines. They drive you crazy. We've been here forever. Do you know that there's been an archaeological dig that discovered bones to a woolly mammoth that were made into a musical instrument? 18,000 BC. Come on. Some guy made a thing 18,000 BC, a musical instrument. In the 1400 BC, we found tablets about singing a song to a god. Because no one prayed, they sang to the god. And the instructions for singing it is on the tablet. On another tablet, there's a thing that says how to tune a harp. 1400 BC. Pythagoras in 500 BC, what did he do? He made the scales, the one we hear today. And all that psychology, they knew what in the modes you had to do. You go to war in the Dorian mode. Now, people don't know that, but we know that. But we knew that in 500 BC. 500, I think in medicine, they were bleeding people about a minute ago. We ruled. And look, I'm sorry, you guys. You can measure whatever you want, but music is it. In the Republic, one of the greatest things ever written, right? Plato said, only two things until you're 21, gymnastics and music. And when asked, a teacher, which one should be first? The answer in the Republic is music. So, athletics has always been number two, not only people. All right. We rule. We're number one. And what I do for a living, and you know why they wanted you to teach music at the very beginning? To be in touch with your emotions, to know more about yourself. The Oracle of Delphi, know thyself. It does. It puts you in touch with everything. Everyone knew that you should study music. Why? To know yourself. And what I do for a living is I speak the language of music. She says, I love you, music begins. I've been in love. I'm still in love. I know what that feels like. I can write that. We've been writing that for 100 years, millions of years. Thousands of years. I don't do any more when it's go get 'em, you know, and then bang bang, and then the music begins. It's exciting, it's happy. Music does all this stuff because it's anti-intellectual. It comes in your head, you make of it whatever you want. And when I'm doing the picture, I just do what I feel. And I hope in our humanity, you get it. It's like you had a headache yesterday, and I have one now. I have a headache. So I know what you mean. Someone they say, I love you, and I go, or he's running up the stairs, he wants to go punch somebody. That's how I feel about punching somebody, and I hope you get it. So everyone else should remember that when music makes you laugh, it makes you excited, it makes you cry even, it's my brothers and sisters who make the music, teach the music, study the music, impart music all of wherever they're going to go. We do that. We bring you all that emotion that you feel. And to my brothers and sisters, I wish you Godspeed and good luck.